Welcome back, everyone. Time now for our body language segment. Who better to start with than Big Tish James, the Attorney General in New York, was pleading not guilty today to those mortgage fraud allegations. She was outside of the courthouse. Let's take a look.
And my faith is, I have this belief in the justice system and the rule of law, and I have a belief in America and all of its individuals who have stood with me, not only in New York, but all across this nation.
This should be interesting. Joining me now, host of the Behavior Panel on YouTube and former military interrogator, body language and behavior expert Greg Hartley is here. Greg, welcome back.
Hey, Grant, how are you?
All right, what do you see from Tish James there?
Well, a shift. When she first starts, watch her. We talk about illustrators being the way we punctuate what we think. I'm a big hand talker. You know I do this all the time. So does she. But she's not punctuating her thoughts. She's needling as she goes. That's inconsistent with the message she's delivering. But then it changes and she starts to move and say all across America. And then she gets on her key message. If you watched her when she came out, she's almost lifeless in the beginning with her arms crossing her torso, all locked down. She's fidgeting her hands. And then she comes up to this. And then suddenly she goes to something more smooth. And her chin rises. That's defiance.
Why would that be? Is she nervous coming out of a courthouse having to plead not guilty? She's the Attorney General. Is that typically what that is?
Yeah, I think it is that she's uncomfortable with how she's going to deliver the message. Look, we all get some kind of stage fright, especially in situations. And one of the things I always say is, even if you don't believe what a person believes, a good interrogator understands the other person and tries to get in their head. That's why I'm glad you said behavior, because we talk more about behavior tonight than body language in some cases. She's uncomfortable, she's needling, and then she shifts over. Her chin rises in defiance. See all that movement? She's suddenly now defiant, and then her hands start to spread, and she starts to move out more widely in that passion plane, as Mark Bowden would call it.
Well, she is a defiant person, and I think that has been true to her for a very, very long time. Let me play another clip from her. Let's roll that.
So there's no fear today. No fear. No fear. No fear. No fear. Because I believe that justice will rain down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream.
I almost feel like she's running for office here. I feel like she's got a campaign thing going on. It looks like she's running for some office other than AG. What's interesting is people who, I said this to you a couple of times recently, there are two very divergent views of what America is and what it should be, probably. One of them thinks that government's the answer, the other doesn't, and they look for reasons and get passionate. And just because they don't share your facts means they don't share the same outcomes often.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. She is very defiant. She's in some hot water, but she's defiant. All right, here's an interesting character. I do not like this guy. I do not trust this guy. I think he's bad for New York. Zohran Mamdani is who I'm talking about, the self-declared socialist, communist, whatever you want to call him. Let's roll him at the mayoral debate this week.
But I also want to correct the record. I have never, not once, spoken in support of global jihad. That is not something that I have said, and that continues to be ascribed to me, and frankly, I think much of it has to do with the fact that I am the first Muslim candidate to be on the precipice of winning this election.
Greg?
A lot of head movement, none of it direct, none of it down, none of it punctuating what he's thinking. Look at his head moving all kinds of directions. Could be cultural. I don't know a lot about him. Don't know where he was raised or any of that. I think a New Yorker. So I don't think it's probably cultural. A couple of other things. Look at that blink rate. That's autonomic nervous response to stress. His blink rate goes through the roof. He's a young guy. But the most telling one is that chin boss. You see that chin do something like that when he starts to talk about this issue. That chin boss we associate with grief or shame typically when it's doing this. My guess is there's some grief associated with the fact he ever said something stupid. That's what we're seeing.
Well, that's interesting because I don't think he's too apologetic. He refuses to denounce this global intifada, and that he refuses to denounce that terminology. That's where a lot of this comes from. And so,
Grant, I don't think it's an apology. I think it's grief for saying it. When your butt's in a sling, you feel awkward and grief or shame for the situation. I don't think he's apologetic at all. I think he's avoiding it.
Interesting. Here's somebody who also ought to be apologetic. That's Andrew Cuomo. He's running against him in this mayor's race, and I can't believe you've got to pick between these two characters. But let's watch Cuomo during the debate.
You have never had a job. You've never accomplished anything. There's no reason to believe you have any merit or qualification for 8.5 million lives. You don't know how to run a government. You don't know how to handle an emergency. And you've literally never proposed a bill on anything that you're now talking about in your campaign.
Greg?
The organism does what made the organism successful. You've heard me say that a million times. This is like Joe Biden when the lights come on, the roach legs move. This guy's been doing this so long. That's right in his wheelhouse to attack. Look at that left hand. He's using one hand only. Interestingly with him, because I've covered him when he was in trouble in the governor's mansion, he uses one hand for positive things and another for negative. I think he's on his positive, in his mind, a positive thing right now, and he goes to his right hand for negative typically, if I recall correctly. But he's doing exactly what he does best, canned speeches delivered at the other guy. The guy could have simply said, never had a sexual harassment charge either. That would have been a good one.
Yeah. Let me play one more. This is Curtis Sliwa. He is the conservative. He was founder of the Guardian Angels, friend of mine. And let's roll Curtis.
I heard the both of them again fighting like kids in the schoolyard. Zohran, your resume could fit on a cocktail napkin. And Andrew, your failures could fill a public school library in New York City.
I love
that,
this one
Greg?
because that's old school calling you on the rug. You're putting his finger pointing at him. That's illustrator. That's a great New Yorker pointing to you, calling you out, looking over, making eye contact when he does it. Yeah, it's good messaging.
You know, it's amazing. This isn't so much in a body language, but he's not wearing his red beret, which is really typical of what he'd always wear as a guardian angel. And I wonder what he's doing and why the campaign says, you know what, take that off.
You know, and we all know him for that, so I don't know why you would take that off. And most people would. I'm not a New Yorker, so can't speak for New Yorkers, but I think most people associate that with a guy who's looking out for the good of the society he was in.
Yeah.
I would say most people say that. No, New Yorkers may have a different opinion. Don't know.
I don't know. I think everybody was pretty grateful for the Guardian Angels, especially in the early 90s, late 80s when things were just not good there. Greg Hartley, it's always great to see you. Thank you for sharing some time with us. I'm going to tell people how to find your website, readbodylanguage.com. That's readbodylanguage.com. And don't forget about his YouTube show, The Behavior Panel. Him and the whole gang there do such a great job. All right, Democrats have lost their minds. We know this because all you got to do is listen to them.